Professor Scott Lucas. Your thoughts on today's developments and also, as my colleague John was saying, the bombshell that was dropped by Sondland yesterday?
Well, if yesterday was a bombshell by Gordon Sondland, not only a U.S. ambassador, but once a Trump ally, today has been precise missile strikes by these two officials further destroying Donald Trump's defense. You have David Holmes, who was in the U.S. Embassy in Kiev, making very, very clear that Donald Trump was demanding investigations of his political rival, Joe Biden, including in that phone call to Gordon Sondland, that there was no doubt about this, and that there was no doubt that there was a quid pro quo in that the Ukraine would not get a visit by President Zelensky to the White House without announcing those investigations, and then the even more destructive missiles of Fiona Hill. This is one of the highest ranking officials in the National Security Council until she left this summer. And she is talking about the threat to Ukraine's security and the threat to American national security, including threats to American diplomats doing their jobs because of Donald Trump, his attorney Rudy Giuliani, and this dedication they had that they had to get an announcement to try to tarnish Joe Biden.
But yet, Scott, let me put it to you. We're seeing this, as you call, precise missile strikes, and yet you hear Donald Trump calling it a kangaroo court, a witch hunt, a scam. Is it going to affect him and harm him?
When your defenses are crumbling, you don't admit they're crumbling, you shout, "Look over there." And the tactics in the Trump-Russia investigation and now the Trump-Ukraine scandal have been to create a whole series of diversions or to attack those who have provided information, even to question the loyalty of U.S. officials who testify. And that is going to continue. Donald Trump will never admit defeat. But when he got to the point yesterday where he said, "I want nothing from Ukraine," in that rather bizarre press conference, impromptu press conference, he neglected to mention that he made that demand, "I want nothing," on the very day that Congress was told about the formal complaint over his pressure on Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. Will Republican senators break from Trump and convict him in 2020? Well, that's a big ask, because that's a political question. But I would say that there is a slim chance. It is only slim, but it's not zero, that if this evidence continues to mount, they may decide they cannot sync with this man who is being seen to abuse his powers in the White House.
They cannot sync with this man. And on that note, when Sondland said everyone was in the loop, even Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, how big is that?
Oh, that's huge. Now, the question is, will we go into the next stage of hearing? So let me explain. It was Gordon Sondland saying that Secretary of State Mike Pompeo not only knew of the Trump-Giuliani campaign, but that he effectively signed off on it for pressure on Ukraine, that National Security Advisor John Bolton, who's now gone, knew about it, even though he wasn't happy with it, and that Vice President Mike Pence knew about it, and that Sondland asked him about it. Now, the question for the Democrats is, do they want to take the time to subpoena Mike Pompeo to appear and to ask him about his role? Because we know that Pompeo will refuse, and that will mean legal action. So do the Democrats want to possibly delay this process by weeks or even months because of that? Or do they think we've got enough, we can go ahead and move to a vote to impeach, the equivalent of a criminal indictment, against Donald Trump by the end of this year?
And I want to ask you about the way, you mentioned it, the way Donald Trump is reacting, but just a bit more analysis on what he says on Twitter, those press conferences that he made, and yesterday being caught on camera with his notes.
Donald Trump's a curious mix here. One is that he's not stable, and we need to recognize he's not stable. But on the other hand, he is a street fighter, and that is he will try any tactic to try to divert and deflect and say, "I'm not the suspect here, I'm the victim." He will try to say, these are not witnesses, these are people pursuing a deep state coup. And you have to realize that as detached from reality as that may be, that for those who are Trump supporters, if they continue to buy the illusion, Trump thinks I can escape. Because at the end of the day, those Republican senators, they won't just judge this on the evidence. They will judge it on public opinion. And if they think that Donald Trump still retains maybe 35–40% support in America, they may think, well, let's not move to convict him because it could damage us, and let's let him live to fight for a second term.
And on that great ending, Scott Lucas, thank you very much indeed for speaking to us on the News Hour. Always a pleasure.